Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely are appreciated, and they do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Okay, really quick before we go any further into today's upload. A couple days ago, I shared an experience, and I used a gentleman's name in detailed, or I didn't use his name, but I used detailed places, and because he wanted to remain anonymous. And people were like, why are you using such detailed places if he wants to remain anonymous? Well, one, this gentleman no longer lives in that area. Two, his name had been changed for that reason. And because he had given me specific permission to share. When someone shares their experiences with me, I don't just go all out. They give me a specific parameter of what to talk about. There was a gentleman when I first started this channel 7-8 years ago. It's been 8 years almost, but roughly 7 years into the start of the channel, he reached out to me and shared an experience with me and gave me specific details of an area where an attack had happened and pertaining to an FBI agent. And said, please do not share this. This is for your eyes only until I give you permission to. I sat on that for 4 years. So when I share information, it's because of that person saying what I can share. I'm not just saying, such and such Joe Henry James living at 1542 Salisbury Stake Lane, this, and that. No, they said, hey, use my name as John Ray and say that I live in this area. Okay, so that's why I was able to give that kind of information. With that being said, a year and a couple of months ago, back in March, I had received an email and a phone number attached and used my burner phone to contact that person. I have a phone that has no connection to the internet. It's just strictly a phone number. I turn it off when I'm done with it. So he reaches out and we went by the alias of Carl. He lived in Meeker, Colorado. Now, in February of 2023, there had been numerous cattle attacks. And at first, the local, state government were saying, this is wolves. This is wolves. They were torn apart, hindquarters up, and a lot of damage to these cattle. About a month later, roughly, the government then came out and said, no, it's not wolves. It's brisket disease, which is a disease that affects cattle in high altitudes. Granted, these cattle live in high altitudes, but brisket disease does not resemble a wolf attack. It's like saying, I have pneumonia and kicked the bucket, but I was savagely mauled by a grizzly bear. Two different ways of death, So this Colorado government is just feeding lie after lie after lie. Carl had kept me in the loop of things. And prior to Carl reaching out to me and the cattle attack occurring in Meeker, he had been horseback riding. He owns a ranch, fairly well off. All his friends are ranchers as well within that area. And he lives on the outskirts of Meeker. Now, there is a wildlife area or refuge called the Rio Blanco Lake State Park, or State Wildlife Area. It is a state park. And because he grew up in this area, his family were ranchers, his enjoyment is going horseback riding. When he just wants to get away, he'll get on his horse and just go. His daughter and his son were with him on this particular day, and they hear a kind of a burst, a 3-burst gunfire, but multiple. And he looks at his daughter and son and says, what the hell? There can't be hunting out here. Let's go figure out what's going on. He is armed as a rancher. He's very, very familiar with what, predators are out and what could happen. So he is armed, probably 85% of the time. They go into this area where he thought he had heard the gunfire, and his daughter and him are kind of side by side. His son being the youngest, but he's in high school, or was in high school at that time. He, boys are different. Girls will listen. Boys kind of just do their own thing. Well, his son kind of went on his own way, but they all arrived in this same vicinity. So imagine you are who they come across, and Carl and his daughter come up straight like this. His son comes up like this. So immediately they see probably no more than 10 guys and no less than 5 in the area. 2 immediately kind of stop Carl and his daughter. And one guy comes up and says, can I help you? And Carl said, there's no hunting here. And these guys, or this one gentleman, really kind of says, that we work for the federal government. We're here on official business. And they give him the whole kind of BS, get the hell out of here. They don't threaten him with the firearms. They don't pulled, they don't draw down on them or anything. But his son, before it is, as his daughter and him are being addressed and they are addressing, the son comes, boop, and he stops right there because one of the guys sees him coming up. Well, the son had caught a glimpse of what was behind the two guys. And they leave. Carl, his son, and his daughter backtrack to where their horse trailer is. So they can, put the horses in the trailer and drive to his ranch. On their way, his son, he's saying, Carl's like, that's really weird. What the hell were they hiding? I think they were poaching, but they did have badges. I've got to call somebody, yada, yada, yada. And during this time, of course, the cattle attack is just starting. So he's thinking maybe they got a wolf, but even that would be illegal. And his son says, Dad, I saw what they shot, and it was bigger than a human, and it looked like a kind of husky-ish German Shepherd-like dog. It was grayish, black, with some brown on it, but it was huge, Dad. And it looked like it had, human features towards its body. That kind of freaks him out. So as the time goes on, these cattle are getting attacked, and people start noticing that there are strangers in town. You're in a very small town where pretty much everyone knows everybody. The friggin' airport is right next to the high school. And eventually a lot of residents have noticed, there's these black SUVs going through. There's a couple of helicopters at the airport, and this, what's going on? And so he's aware of what's going on, and he's thinking about all this. So needless to say, a couple months go by, and in April, now, mind you, there's a huge kind of news cover-up going on. So at first, the government were saying, it's wolves. No, it's not wolves, because the nearest wolf pack is like 300 miles away, and it consists of 5 to 7 wolves and this and that. And, just the fish and game really have their, eye on the wolf population for reason. And so then the government says, well, it wasn't a wolf attack. It wasn't wolves. It was this brisket disease, which then the residents are then, saying, how the hell is a disease tearing apart these cattle from the ass first, like they are getting attacked, like a wolf attack or a predator attack would. And the thing is a lot of these cattle were not fed on. So they were just attacked for sport. And that is what we hear a lot with these dogmen attack on cattle and other kind of animals, horses, llama, goat, sheep. That's how they attack. They kill and very seldom feed. It's kind of weird if you think about it. So he gets a call in, I want to say late March, early April, from a good friend that he grew up with. His father's father were friends, like these guys are generational ranchers and generational friends. Like Carl's dad was friends with this guy's dad. Their kids are probably friends. I don't know, but I just know what he said about, knowing this guy since he was a young kid. Now, he said, remember what you were talking about at the Rio Blanco Lake Wildlife Refuge? And he says, yeah. He goes, well, the other night I was bringing out, some stuff out to the fields, and I heard burst gunfire. Now, these guys are older. Carl's older than me. We're a rancher, so pretty much knows what firearms sound like. It's not like he lives in New York City or Boston and doesn't know what a gun sounds like, and especially a 3-round burst compared to a 3-round semi-automatic, because it's a very different sound no matter how fast your finger is. And but he said, it sounded awful close to Jensen, and there's Jensen State Wildlife Refuge, which is a distance between. Meeker kind of sits in the middle between Rio Blanco and Jensen. And actually Jensen's higher up in elevation. So they get the idea to, why don't you come out here tomorrow, bring your horse with you, let's go for a ride, let's see. I got an idea of where this gunfire took place, but after I heard it, I got to thinking about what you said that happened a couple months back. And I'm kind of familiar. I'm kind of stressed out, and I want to get up there. It's baffling me what this noise was. I want to know what it was. So the next day, Carl gets up and he heads to his good friends, and they go out towards this Jensen State Wildlife Refuge. So they go out, and about 1/8 of a mile, not too far from Carl's friend's pastures, is this kind of area. And they had been out for, a couple of hours, but he kind of knew the vicinity. Just judging off of living there his entire life and kind of mentally measuring the distance of the sound and how it carried. Mind you, behind his pasture and such is mountains. So they get to this area a couple of hours in, and Carl's friend says, are you smelling that? And Carl stops and he, starts to smell, and he said, I don't know what you're smelling. And they go a little ways in, and they come across this kind of area where it wasn't a very large area, maybe 50 feet by 50 feet, just this kind of clearing. But it was a clearing, but it really wasn't. There was some brush down, and there was clear evidence that something had happened in this area. There was skirmish marks on the ground. It smelled still like a gun range, an outdoor gun range does. multiple, you've got multiple rifles firing multiple rounds. And it kind of had that just kind of cordite smell, along with like a copper and shit and urine, and just really kind of just this off smell compared to the rest of the area. The area looked weird. And they started to notice that in some of the trees, there were chunks of tree just sheared off, like someone had been out there shooting. And, he said, I think we found the spot. He said, what do you think, kids? And he said, no, it was 3-round bursts. I'm telling you, it sounded like what you explained to me. So they get off their horse. The horses are acting kind of spooked, and they look around and they can't find any brass. They do not find any brass, but they do find evidence, like I said, in the trees. There's chunks of bark ripped off. You could see fresh meat of the tree still on the tree. And Carl starts to kind of walk the perimeter. His buddy's looking at this one tree and trying to get around out of it. And Carl said, holy, come here. So he walks over and he goes into the woods 5-6 feet. And he finds this chunk of flesh, kind of, raw, bloody, fatty, but with hair. And he said, what the hell is this? They're looking at it and they can't figure out. It's not deer. It's not canine. It's definitely not bovine. What the hell is it? It's not a rabbit. And he picks it up, puts it in his pouch on his saddle or whatever, and said, let's not talk about this. Don't come back out here. Just stay away from this area. And sure as shit, after that second kind of gunfire escapade, the cattle mutilations and cattle deaths stopped in Meeker, Colorado. Throughout this time, Carl had contacted me, and I had talked to him probably 4 or 5 times. And he said, listen, I have this chunk of flesh with fat and hair, and I'm going to send you some. And I said, okay. And we figured out how to go about doing it. I rented a P.O. box in Vermont. And I said, well, this is the best way I know how to do it. So I get it. Hopefully I get it. This and that. My buddy I went to school with, his name's Andrew. He's a veterinarian. He owns a small veterinary service up here. And I contacted him and I said, listen, how much and how possible is it to identify an animal with hair and tissue? And he said, not hard, but it's got to be a hair follicle. It'd be easier if there was tissue, some blood, or fatty, meat. And I said, I think I got it. I said, but can you do it? Or do you have to send it out? And he said, I got to send it out, but I know people because I've been doing this for 20 years. He's been a veterinarian for 20 years. And so I said, all right. I said, well, what my life is dedicated to is cryptozoology and looking into this strange, he said, yeah. I said, will you come with me? I said, but drive your car. And I explained to him why and what. And he said, yeah. And we have another one of our friends who I trust who came up with us, and we all took separate cars and we met up when we came back into New York. And I said, all right, we stopped at this, not even a truck stop. It's a rest stop. There's not even a bathroom there. Like it's one of those where you pull over and there's like woods, a picnic table, and maybe 10 or 12 parking areas. So we pull over and we get out, and I've got a cooler and a bunch of plastic bags with me. And I open the box where we are, and it smelled so bad. Like it was starting to rot, but I'm imagining a lot of that smell was the hair and what was on the hair. Because when Drew smelled it, he said, Jesus, what is it? That smells like shit. And I said, yeah, I think it's rotten. He said, no, it's like that's urine and shit and some kind of funk, but it is starting to get funky. So we cut this piece into 4 pieces. And I give a chunk to my buddy, and I said, hide this. We Ziploc bagged it. I said, do whatever, just keep it safe. He goes and leaves, and he gets home and vacuum seals it. And I don't know what he did with it. I know he still has it. Drew and I are up there. I said, here's the piece to get tested. I said, I'll talk to you in a couple days. He said, okay. And I said, let me know how much money this is going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be thousands of dollars because that's what the experts tell us it is, but it's not. So we split up. He goes back down here, and I drive my own way home. And there's this little area, there's this little town outside of, just north of me. And I take a chunk and I hide it. I put it in a bag. And I put it and I hid it just in case I lost or something happened to the pieces that we had. And I come home, and Andrew gives me a call, and he says, all right, he said, it's going to be about $750. He said, I can't cut you a deal because I told the girl that I know that it needs to kind of get rushed and kind of, hush a little bit. And I looked it up, and I didn't get ripped off at all. It's about $1,250 to $500 in that range to get identification from hair follicles. Google it. Please do. So we wait. I go home, and I cut a piece. I cut the hair off the fat because I didn't want it to stink up my house. And because I was looking at it and I was like, this is the weirdest looking hair. There is gray, there is brown, there is black, and it resembles, even though it's hair, it resembles porcupine quills. And I called Andrew after I realized that. And he said, holy shit, you're right, Jeff. It does. Wow. He goes, I was looking at it thinking of how odd it was. He goes, it's coarse. He goes, it's thicker than dog hair and cat hair. And, he goes, but it's not pokey or pointy or solid like a quill. Like you can bend it. And so I'm looking at it. And as I'm looking at it, I got it in this bag right here that I've had it in since I got it. And Tigger, the channel's mascot, my Maine Coon cat, comes walking in and puts his paws on my leg because he hears me playing with the bag. And he wanted to smell it. And when I let him smell it, he shot back, gagged, like physically gagged, like cats do. Excuse me. Jumped off my leg and like backed up, kind of his hair stood up. Like it was almost like he was afraid of the smell, but grossed out at the same time. And I remember sharing this with y'all on the live stream and in the video that I made. And a lot of comments were like, that's crazy, because a lot of people have seen Tig and, to imagine, but you probably won't be able to make it out, but there it is. And it is the strangest looking hair. Now, do you see what I mean by porcupine quills? It resembles porcupine quills, but it's tan, black, and gray. And we get it tested. It takes a while to come back. I thought for sure that something bad was going to happen. Now, during that time, my daughter and I had been followed by a van with government plates. We have no government agencies up here. Like, this was a government plated gray cargo van. Really strange. Because just out of the blue, we're going to get tailed. And then I pulled over and I'll never forget, because I had been in an accident in January and I'd been rear-ended. So when I got hit, because of insurance reasons and this and that, a business hit me. I had an old Forester, I had a 2015 Forester, and I loved that car. It was great. And the appraisal, they gave me a good chunk for it. They gave me like $13,000 for it. And I paid like $6,000 for it. I ended up getting a Forester Sport. So, and I got that at the end of January into February. So that's how I remember the dates and kind of when this occurred, when that van followed me, because I had just had this car about a month and a half. And so when I pulled over, he had to pass me. He had no way of stopping because there was two cars behind him. So I pulled out and I said, let's follow him, bud. And Belle's 16 and my little buddy, she's like, let's do it. So eventually both cars turned and now we're behind the van. And I'm like, take a picture of that plate. And I shared it with you all on in the community. So we get the results, and it comes back crocutta. 70, like 71%, 72%, somewhere around there. And the other like 28 to 29% was an unknown primate. So crocata is a hyena. It is spotted hyena. And then this unknown primate. And I'm looking at Andrew and I'm like, well, how is that possible? And he said, I don't know, but that's what these labs came back as. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. He goes, and you're lucky that I know this person that does the lab work there, because I'd probably get flagged, thinking that there was some guy in upstate New York that owned a hyena. Little did they know that this came out of Meeker, Colorado. So I let Carl know, I let you guys know the results, and everything kind of died down and went quiet. There had been periodically 1 or 2 cattle deaths in Meeker, just nothing alarming like last time, but enough to where a couple of the ranchers are talking, and hey, this is like last year. These things were, tore up. You think it's going to happen again? And now we come to why Carl reached out to me yesterday. Also, I forgot, Carl's son had, during this time from January to April, or February till April, I said the airport is like a high school airport. And they had noticed, a lot of the public had noticed that there were, black helicopters and just things that were out of the norm for the residents of Meeker, Colorado. After the cattle deaths had stopped, the helicopters weren't there. Those guys in the SUVs weren't there. Where'd the SUVs go? Where'd the helicopters go? No one knows. So Carl is horseback riding. He's with his wife, and they had went up to Jensen, and they were just having a day, and it was last weekend. They went just kind of north of their home. There's a mountain area called Coal Mountain. And there is no residence. There's no houses out there. Like, if there is a house, it's a ranch, and it's way away from anywhere. Like, we are talking just rural, out in the mountains. And so they're just horseback riding, enjoying their weekend. And they get to this little area. They're going to sit and have lunch. So they get off their horses and they get down and they sit down, and they're looking kind of over this kind of ledge area, and they can see a good distance. And Carl notices something. He's like, what is that? He's like, I see something out there. He said, a distance away. And whatever it was wasn't aware of him. His wife looks and she says, is that a bear? Is that a bear with its cubs? And he looks back to see how the horses are acting. And the horses aren't acting too bad. And he said, I don't know. Let's watch it for a minute. And he gets out his phone and he's trying to, zoom in on this bear with its cubs. And as he zooms in, it gets into this clearing area. And his wife goes, that's not a bear. That's a wolf. And those are pups. And she goes, but those are not pups. Those are big. Those are the size of, a full-grown wolf. And the thing in front of them with him is about the size of our horse. What the hell is that? And he's looking and he scrolls in and he's got a Galaxy probably an S23, S24 Ultra, because I've got an S24 and you can scroll in. You can get good distance with it. And he takes a couple pictures. And he said to his wife, that's what we saw that day. That's what our son saw that day. That's what was killing the cows. Are they back? And he gets about 6 pictures. And his wife is now scared because they're walking. They're not really getting closer, but they're not getting further away. And she's like, I'm not even hungry. She goes, Carl, let's get the hell out of here. We got about an hour, 2-hour horseback ride to our trailer. Let's get out of here. He said, yeah, let's go. He takes a couple more pictures. He had a total of about 10 pictures. And they're going. Probably a half an hour in, the horses start to get spooked. And he looks around, and because he notices that at first his wife is ahead. And he notices at first, like, her horse is acting spooked. My horse is acting spooked. And he's like looking around behind him, on the sides of him. And he pulls out his phone and he calls the guy that he was with that day. And he says, listen, I'm up in this area right now. I can tell you almost exactly where I'm at. But those things, those dogmen, are back. He said, I got some photos of what may be a mother with 2 pups, but they're not pups. They're the size of a full-grown wolf, a mature wolf. And the one that's with them is about the size of, not a huge horse, but a decent sized, small horse. He said, this is where we are in case. He's like, the horses are acting spooked. I'm with my wife. And his buddy knows his wife's name. I'm not going to share her name. And he said, so if anything happens, come up here or send, law enforcement up here. But when we get to the trailer, I'll call you and let you know that we're good. We parked at such and such, Jensen's. So, all right, buddy. I'll, you got about 45 minutes to an hour till you're at the truck. Yep. All right. I'll wait for your call. I'm going to head up, that way in about a half an hour. And if you don't call me, at least I'll be up there to, look for you and let law enforcement know where you are. So they get to where their trailer and truck is parked. And he's loading up the horses. And he looks around and he remembers, I got to call, what's his name, to let him know and to head back home. And then I'll meet him down there. You can say hi to his wife. I want to show him these pictures. And he notices a car that had been there when they had pulled in and parked for the day that had been there. There was another car kind of on the side of that. No one's in that car. And then just past the two cars, so he's parked this way he's taking up probably, 8 parking spots. And down a ways is the two cars, but he notices this white SUV that's parked there. And it's not an American SUV. It looks expensive, he said. And he said, as it pulled out, it was a Range Rover. So he looks, and he doesn't think much of it. But he calls his buddy, and he said, we're here. We got here okay. Horses are loaded up. I'm going to give them some water before we head out. But I'm going to meet you at the house. What's her name wants to speak to your wife, and, I want to show you these pictures. And he said, all right, I'm about a little ways away from you anyway. I'll turn around and I'll meet you at the house. Okay. And he hangs up the phone. And at that second, he's driving by, or he hangs up the phone and he kind of hears this car drive by. And it's that white SUV that goes by him. And he looks and, just kind of waves. And he notices that there's 2 guys in there, and they're in their 30s, clean cut, but they look at him, they do one of these. He waves like, hey, how you doing? And a normal person would be like, or something. But the guy in the passenger side is kind of looking at him, but doing something. He can tell he's doing something. So he gets in his truck and he starts driving. And his wife says, Carl, let me use your phone. I got to call our son, and let him know where we're going, and, we'll be home later. And he goes, where's your phone? And she goes, my phone won't turn on. He's like, what, did you run out of battery? I don't know, probably. So he takes his phone out of his pocket and hands it to her. And, why is your phone off? So my phone's not off. I just got off the phone with, what's his name? And she turns it on. She's pressing buttons, and she's got her phone and, just trying to turn both of them on. And about 5 minutes go by, and Carl said this was the weirdest thing, Jeff. He said that Range Rover, when we were driving back into civilization, he said that Range Rover was parked on the other side of the road, pulled over, facing the way it had just come, and both guys were out of the car, and one of the guys had the back lifted up, the tailgate of the SUV, the hatch lifted up, but he had a computer. We drove by. He said, I stopped down the road to see if they needed anything, but he said, I had a feeling that they worked for the government. For some reason, I had a feeling. He said, but I was going to ask him if they were having car troubles, but why would the guy be on the computer? This and that. In the car, the guys close the hatch and jump in the car and go back the way they had just come from. And that way, going back, is Jensen, but you can also get to, there's a chevron kind of oil, whatever area up there. Chevron owns some land up there. So that's what he started to think. Maybe it's the Chevron guys. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they can't. But that's weird. Why didn't they wave? Why were they parked there? She gets the phones going, and she calls the kid and hands Carl his phone, and he just puts it in his front pocket. He doesn't do anything. He's driving, he's not thinking anything, but he noticed how weird that was. That's just something that kind of stuck out. It was just weird. They get to the house, his buddy's house, and she goes in, and he's talking to his buddy, and he pulls out his phone, and he opens his phone, and every kind of information that he did that day, that he did on Sunday, any call that he made, any email that he had received, any text, any photo taken was gone. All of Sunday was wiped from his phone. And at that point is when everything dawned on him. And he told his buddy, and he's going through in a Galaxy, we have Drive. We don't have like what Apple phones have. You can eventually, but he's freaked out. He's freaked out because everything that he had is like his whole phone. So he goes in and says to his wife, check your phone log, check this, check that, check your emails, check your texts, because he had known that she had texted their daughter and this and that, and she had just called her son, or their son, like 20 minutes before. Everything from Sunday was wiped from her phone, including that phone call to her son. That was the same time they're driving by. Carl calls her phone. It rings. It shows his name on the caller ID, this and that. Click. Open again. No caller ID, no phone call. She didn't receive a call from him, and it doesn't show that he made a call. So they get home. His friend believes him 100% because they both had witnessed what they had witnessed a year prior. They go home, tell the son what happened. The son takes his USB, plugs it into the computer, starts, looking, trying to find the photos, trying to do this, trying to do that. Can't do anything, can't retrieve anything. Next morning, his phone works perfect. Caller ID works, phone numbers saved, phone calls saved, text saved, email saved, everything's there. Not from Sunday, but Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday's empty, Monday is there. So you got a whole day gone. Why is that important? One, Brad had told us about a time that only one other person that he made a phone call to knew what he was going to do one day. And the photos that he had taken had mysteriously been wiped off his phone. Nothing but. Not once, but twice to Brad. Now to Carl. Carl is now, this weekend, going to go up with his buddy on their horses, and they're going to try to go to that same location and see if they can find any kind of evidence down there, look around. I'm not going to get into too much detail. I will share Monday morning exactly what he has planned next Monday. So, but the government did not want those photos out. And he had a photo of 2 juvenile dogmen with a large adult dogman in a location that he had said, this happened, this is going on, and a week later, it's in the news. Government is well aware of what's going on. This isn't an isolated incident. It's happened to Carl, Brad, a couple of other people that I know of. And just crazy. How did they know? How did they know? Do they monitor our phone calls? Is there a word? Is it the agencies that control this? Do they have these, like, you say Dogman on your phone and it keys up and it gets sent somewhere? Are they watching everybody's YouTube that makes a video? Are they watching all these, like, movies, books, this and that to make sure that this, is that why no one has any decent photos? Or they all look like they came out of potatoes? Because what's crazy is you have these people who are very reliable that have talked about this for years now, that take a photo with a decent camera and something happens. And now there's all this AI generated garbage on the internet now of these fake dogmen jumping like weird, strangely, and then jumping into some like non-existent hole that you can't see, but it's just like, it looks like a bad Godzilla movie with no Godzilla, just this really weird looking AI generated, stupid looking cryptid that, you know what I'm saying? Has the government gone that far to keep this a secret from us? Like they did with the UFO, like they did with the UAP. And then what? 20, 30 years later, they're going to soft disclose it for us? Look at my eye right here. I had rubbed my eye after touching that hair, and my eye is bothering me terribly now. I don't know. I really think that they have infiltrated. And that's a big reason why I use a burner phone when I communicate with people and create a different name for someone. Like, I literally just had to delete the end of what I just said and connect these 2 videos together because I made a mistake and I shared Carl's real name and then realized, oh my God. The government does not want us to know these things exist. And for it to be in this book that they do doesn't amaze me. It doesn't, the only thing it does is tell me 100% without a doubt that the government knows dogmen are real. The government has their control on what we are allowed to know and what we can know, what we have. I truly believe the reason why there are no great photos, great videos, is for that simple fact that the second someone shares it, it's taken down. It's deleted from their phone, from their hard drive, they have the ability to do it. The government has the ability. It's not hard. And then after 9/11, and then Obama's just pure illegal infiltration into our lives, those laws passed, this is not good. Not good at all. Dude, my eye is really bad. All right, guys, thank you. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'll let you guys know what went down on Monday. Remember, because he's got a plan, and all I'm going to share is that. So with that being said, thank you for supporting this channel. It is your support that gives people like Carl and me and you a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free, simply treated with the respect we all deserve. It's because of you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.